Hey guys, tonight we slip into straw sandals, adjust our stiff hakama pants, and wander down a dusty, stone-lined road in feudal Japan. It's quiet. Crickets trill in the tall grass. A paper lantern sways gently outside a tea shop that's already closed. You're not just passing through, you are a samurai. Not the sword-flashing action star you might have imagined, though. No, tonight you're the real thing, exhausted, slightly underfed, and just trying to make it back home without getting a splinter in your foot. You tighten your sash, and the faint smell of green tea wafts from your sleeve. That's the only thing you've had since noon, and it wasn't even the good kind. You're halfway through your daily patrol, and the soft creak of your armor is the only sound for miles. Your feet ache. The roads are endless. This isn't the epic part of being a samurai, this is the part they leave out in the kabuki plays. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, drop your location and local time in the comments. I always love seeing where you're tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You shift the weight of your swords at your hip, one long, one short, both symbols of your status, but also surprisingly heavy when you're just trying to walk home. Your straw sandals, called waraji, dig into your soles. They're cheap, scratchy, and wear out after a few days. You made these yourself yesterday, twisting rope in the early morning with numb fingers. Samurai, despite what movies tell you, are not too proud to DIY. The road ahead stretches through rice paddies, a few lone pine trees, and the occasional thatched roof. You spot a peasant in the distance, bowing so deeply their forehead nearly touches the dirt. You nod back, because even though your stomach is growling and your robe smells like 3 days of sweat and dust, you're still technically above them in class. At least on paper. The thing is, being a samurai isn't all about slicing through enemies or dramatically shouting, "For honor." Sometimes it's about paperwork. Sometimes it's about eating the same bland bowl of rice day after day. And more often than not, it's about walking, endlessly walking. Patrols, errands, visits to the local magistrate's office, you walk everywhere. There's a horse, maybe, if you're very lucky or unusually high-ranking. But for the most part, it's just your aching feet and a mental chant of, "Don't trip, don't trip." Some historians still argue whether most samurai in rural areas even owned full suits of armor at all, or if it was reserved for wealthier city samurai and ceremonial use. You're wearing a hand-me-down breastplate that doesn't quite fit. The shoulder ties were rethreaded by your grandmother. You're hoping no one notices. By now, the moon is high. There's a chill in the air, but no breeze to carry it. Your thoughts drift to dinner, or the lack of one. If you're lucky, your household managed to stretch this month's rice allowance far enough to leave some extra for you. If not, well, there's always hot water and a dream. You pass a tiny Shinto shrine nestled at the edge of a forest. You bow briefly, because that's what's expected. Even if you're thinking more about your blisters than the spirits. A fox scurries across the path. It pauses, eyes glowing in the moonlight, then disappears into the underbrush. You've heard stories of fox spirits, kitsune, but you're too tired to worry about being cursed tonight. There's a brief moment where you consider just lying down in the grass. Let the night air lull you into a nap. But you know the consequences. Sleep on duty, and you're looking at public shame, docked rice, and maybe even a demotion. Honor culture doesn't exactly allow for nap breaks. You finally arrive at the edge of the village where your quarters are. The entrance is marked by a simple wooden gate, and your younger cousin, also a samurai, though barely old enough to grow sideburns, nods as you pass. You mutter something about how quiet it's been tonight. He laughs. "Quiet means boring, and boring means good," he says, quoting something your grandfather always said. Inside, the flickering light of an oil lamp casts long shadows across the tatami floor. You remove your swords carefully, placing them on a small stand near the door. There's a ritual to it, your long sword facing upward, angled just so, as a sign of peace. The shorter sword stays closer. Just in case. Your stomach grumbles again. Someone left a tiny bowl of plain rice on a tray near your bedding. It's slightly cold. There's a lone umebashi, pickled plum, nestled in the center like a sad little island. You eat it anyway. It's sour enough to make your eyes water, but it'll keep you going. That and some hot tea. The tea, mercifully, is still warm. You sip slowly, letting the bitterness settle across your tongue. There's not much variety in your meals, but there's something comforting in the repetition. Your ancestors drank this same tea. Your great-grandfather probably had the same sore feet. Maybe even wore the same armor. That thought helps. Sort of. The mat beneath you is stiff. The blanket is thin. But somehow, as your body eases into the floor and your hand rests near the hilt of your sword, you feel a strange kind of peace. You're alive. You've done your duty. And tomorrow, there will be more tea. More rice. More walking. More dusty roads. But for now, you sleep. Morning hits you like a polite but relentless drumbeat. The village rooster starts squawking before the sun even rises, and your body, so used to discipline, pulls itself upright without waiting for your brain to agree. You sit cross-legged on the cold tatami, still sore from yesterday's patrol. You'd think all this honor and discipline would earn you a mattress eventually, but nope, just layers of straw and dignity. You move stiffly toward the small table where your daily allowance of rice is already waiting. It's not much, barely more than a bowl. And no, there's no bacon, no pancakes, no surprise fruit smoothie. Just rice. Again. Still warm, though, which is nice. You sip tea between bites, not because it's trendy, but because it helps wash down the clumps. As a samurai, you're not paid in gold coins or fancy robes. You're paid in rice. Literally. Your entire salary is measured in koku, a unit based on how much rice it takes to feed one person for a year. 1 koku equals about 150 kilograms of rice. For higher-ranking samurai, you might get dozens, maybe hundreds of koku annually. You get a handful. Metaphorically. Though sometimes it feels literal. It makes budgeting fun. Want new sandals? That'll cost about 3 bowls of rice. Need to fix your sword scabbard? Better skip dinner. Samurai didn't go shopping with coins very often, they bartered, relied on stipends, or sent their servants to haggle. Not that you have a servant. You are the servant. Rice wasn't just food. It was currency, status, and power all packed into a grainy little white mound. Your lord, the daimyo, measures your loyalty by how well you use your rice stipend. Spend too much, and you're seen as irresponsible. Save too much, and you're suspected of ambition. You can't win. It's like trying to balance a budget with oatmeal. Historians still argue whether this rice-based economy actually kept samurai loyal, or just made them too hungry to revolt. One theory suggests it was less about noble tradition and more about controlling the warrior class with something so basic, they'd never rise up, give them rice, and they'll behave. And behave you do. Every grain of rice is tracked, taxed, and reported up the chain. You keep ledgers, not just for yourself, but for the land you oversee. If your village's harvest is low, your rice income drops. If it's high, your daimyo might skim extra off the top. Either way, you're the middleman in a system built on paddy fields and polite exploitation. You remember last autumn when the rains came too early and ruined part of the crop. Everyone pretended it wasn't a big deal, but you still ended up boiling wild roots for dinner 3 nights in a row. You swore you'd never eat bamboo shoots again. Spoiler, you definitely will. Some lords give generous rice allotments to their favorite samurai. Others keep them barely above starvation to test their resolve. You're pretty sure your lord is the second kind. He smiles a lot but never offers seconds. Classic villain move. You step outside your quarters and stretch under the morning sun. A few other samurai are already gathered for roll call. Their uniforms are neat, but you can see the wear in their eyes. Everyone's tired. Everyone's pretending they're not. One guy's missing a sandal strap and is trying to hide it by standing still. You nod at him knowingly. We've all been there. Today, you're not scheduled for patrol, so you've been assigned to check rice stores in the village granary. It's a thrilling task, guaranteed to spike your blood pressure by at least 0%. Still, it matters. Because if the numbers don't add up, you get blamed. Not the granary worker. Not the mice. Just you. You walk through the narrow village paths, past farmers bent over their rice fields. Their backs are permanently hunched, and their hats are so wide they look like they're preparing for liftoff. A few glance up at you and nod respectfully. Not out of admiration, necessarily, more like, please don't confiscate my lunch. At the granary, you remove your sandals before stepping inside. It's a cavernous space with wooden bins and the faint scent of moldy straw. The rice is neatly packed in giant barrels and tied bundles. You start your count, jotting figures on a scroll. Somewhere mid-count, your stomach growls. You whisper to it gently. Not now, please. Just let me finish the math. Suddenly, a rat darts across the floor. You flinch, then sigh. That's the third one today. The granary keeper shrugs, apologizes, and offers you some roasted soybeans as a peace offering. You accept. It's protein, sort of. Plus, your face probably looks hangry. By mid-afternoon, the sun is high, the air is humid, and you've written more kanji than your hand can tolerate. You stop for a tea break. Your tea is stored in a humble bamboo container, matcha, bright green and bitter. You scoop a small portion into your bowl, add hot water, and stir it with a bamboo whisk until it froths just a little. Then you drink. Slowly. Like it's your only joy in life. Because sometimes, it is. You watch the farmers in the distance, sloshing through waterlogged paddies. Your tea warms your chest, and for a moment, you remember a festival long ago, when you were a child, and someone handed you a rice ball wrapped in seaweed. It felt like treasure. Now. Rice is your job, your currency, your dinner, your burden. You get why some samurai eventually gave it all up and became monks. Monks still eat rice. But at least no one makes them count it. As the sun begins to sink, you head home again. Another walk. Another stretch of aching joints and gravel in your sandals. But tonight, you're bringing back something special, 2 extra bundles of rice as a reward for your granary work. It's not much, but it means a full dinner. Maybe even 2 pickled plums. Luxury. Back at your quarters, you share the rice with your cousin, who's busy trying to write a haiku about weeds. You both eat quietly, grateful, chewing slowly, savoring every grain like it holds secrets of the universe. You think, not for the first time, that maybe it does. The next morning arrives with an annoyingly punctual sunbeam stabbing you right in the face through the rice paper window. You groan softly, because even though you're a trained warrior, a symbol of feudal honor and all that, you're also a person who just wants 5 more minutes of sleep. But no luck. Duty never snoozes. Today's schedule. Training. Sword drills, footwork, maybe some archery if you're lucky. Definitely some yelling from the older instructor whose eyebrows move more than his lips. You pull yourself together, slip into your training kimono, and tighten your obi belt with a sigh. The fabric smells faintly of sweat and tea smoke. It's been washed, recently-ish. You chew through your bowl of rice and down your tea while walking, a move your ancestors would probably frown on, but efficiency wins. There's no protein, no magical morning supplement. Just the same reliable blend of carbs and tannins. Breakfast of warriors. You make your way to the dojo, a modest wooden building where the village's samurai gather to practice the art of not dying. It creaks as you slide the doors open. Inside, the floor is polished to a dull shine from decades of footsteps, sweeps, and the occasional dramatic fall. You greet your fellow trainees. Everyone looks mildly grumpy in that universal early morning way. One guy is still rubbing sleep from his eyes. Another has his hakama pants on backwards but hasn't noticed yet. You consider saying something, but hey, maybe that's part of his technique. Training begins with suburi, basic sword swings. You raise your wooden practice sword, exhale, and swing downward with focused precision. Again. And again. And again. It's less about slicing imaginary enemies and more about getting your form perfect, your shoulders relaxed, your breathing timed. You lose track of how many reps you've done. Maybe 200. Maybe 500. Or maybe just 37, but your arms are already noodles. Then come the paired drills, kumite. You square off with your cousin, the same guy who wrote a haiku about weeds last night. He's quick. Younger. Slightly cocky. You both bow, then circle each other. Wooden swords clash with a satisfying thwack, your muscles tense as you try not to trip over your own feet. There's a rhythm to it, like a conversation spoken in strikes and parries. Don't anticipate, observe, barks your instructor from the side, probably quoting some 15th century sword master whose name sounds like a weather pattern. You nod without looking. Easy for him to say, he's not currently dodging a cousin determined to impress girls by beating you. Training continues with Aido, the art of drawing the sword smoothly and cutting in a single motion. This one's more meditative. You kneel, hand on your katana's hilt, breath steady. In one motion, you draw and slice through the air in front of you. The blade whistles softly. Historians still argue whether most samurai ever really used Aido in actual combat, or if it was more of a ceremonial flex to impress each other. Either way, it makes you feel cool. And maybe a little dizzy. You break for a few minutes, drinking more tea. This time, it's roasted barley tea, mujika. It's earthy, almost nutty, and you pretend you're drinking something fancier than boiled grains. A guy next to you offers you a dried persimmon from his pocket. You accept, and now you're friends for life. That's just how snack diplomacy works. The next round of training is with the yari, a spear. It's longer than your sword and surprisingly awkward. The goal is to jab, twist, and control distance. You keep poking a practice dummy in the throat, then apologizing to it like it's a real person. Your instructor does not look amused. Training with spears was crucial back in the earlier samurai days, when foot soldiers dominated the battlefield and swords were more of a last resort. Contrary to modern myth, the katana wasn't the battlefield MVP, it was backup. Spears, bows, and coordinated formations did the real heavy lifting. But of course, movies don't show that because nothing says hero like standing 30 feet away holding a pointy stick. You move on to archery next. Traditional Japanese archery, kyudo, is part combat technique, part spiritual journey, and part how not to smack yourself in the ear with a bowstring. You line up your shot, inhale deeply, and release. The arrow sails, and misses by a generous margin. Better than yesterday, your cousin says cheerfully. You glare at him, but in a friendly, totally not sore kind of way. The sun is well overhead by now, and the air inside the dojo smells like pine wood and samurai sweat. You wipe your forehead with a cloth and slump against a post. Your legs feel like seaweed. Your arms are somewhere between burning and numb. Lunch is served outside. You sit with the others under a cherry tree, enjoying a rare breeze. The meal? You guessed it, rice. This time it comes with a few slices of dried daikon radish and miso soup, which is practically a feast. You take your time, eating slowly, grateful for the silence. Someone jokes about how training used to be worse. Back in the Sengoku era, one guy says dramatically, they trained by wrestling bears. No, another replies. They trained with bears. You all laugh. The instructor hears you and yells for everyone to stand. More drills. The afternoon fades into a blur of more suburi, more blisters, and a minor injury when someone tries to do a spinning move he saw in a kabuki play. The instructor calls it a day before someone breaks a leg. You limp home. Your arms ache. Your shoulders throb. But somehow, you feel accomplished. Like your body knows something your mind hasn't caught up to yet. That repetition, even in exhaustion, builds something quiet and permanent. You drink tea with your cousin again. He's icing his wrist. You're rubbing your feet. No one speaks. You just watch the evening fall over the village like a soft blanket. Later, you lie in bed, feeling the dull pulse of your muscles, the rhythm of your breath, and the faint rustle of wind through bamboo outside your window. Tomorrow, it starts again. Sword. Rice. Tea. Repeat. The days start to blur together, each one folding into the next like the pleats of your hakama. You wake, you eat rice, you train, you drink tea. It's a routine so rigid it could be mistaken for a religion. But today is different. Today, you're summoned to the castle. Not to fight. Not to defend. To deliver a report on the village's rice yields and confirm the tax records. Riveting stuff. You dress carefully in your formal robes, the ones that make you feel like a slightly better paid clerk. The fabric is stiff, and the crest of your clan is freshly inked on the back, though the left sleeve has a suspicious fish smell that won't wash out. It's probably better not to ask questions. The castle isn't particularly grand. Not like the ones in storybooks or strategy games. It's a low, stone-based complex, more practical than palatial. Think less Versailles, more glorified war office. The guards nod as you enter. They know you. You're not important, but you're familiar, which is a comfort in a world where unfamiliarity gets you stabbed. You walk through corridors made of cedar and rice paper, sandals whispering across polished floors. Inside, bureaucrats in layered robes shuffle papers, brush ink onto scrolls, and murmur politely passive-aggressive remarks at one another. You can tell who's important by how many layers they're wearing and how slowly they blink. You hand over your scroll, bow, and take a seat while they review the figures. Which is code for, pretend to read while sipping tea for an hour. While waiting, you overhear a debate in the next room about samurai hairstyles. Top knots, known as chanmage, are apparently under scrutiny again. One lord argues it's a symbol of honor. Another says it's outdated and makes everyone look like a radish. Historians still argue whether the chanmage was purely functional, helping helmets sit better, or if it evolved into a status marker just to make samurai look taller and weirder. Eventually, you're summoned forward to explain a minor discrepancy in last month's rice ledger. You stammer something about storm damage and lost crops. They nod slowly, as if you've confessed to burning down the imperial palace. But finally, they accept your answer. You bow again, deep and deliberate, before you're dismissed with the enthusiasm of a rice weevil. Walking back through the town, you reflect on how much of a samurai's life isn't about battle at all. It's about managing. Overseeing. Reporting. The sword is there, sure, but it's mostly sheathed. The real cuts are made with numbers, ink, and rice sacks. And speaking of rice, you're starving. You stop at a roadside vendor. He offers grilled rice balls, yaki onigiri, with a dab of miso on top. You hesitate, then splurge. One rice ball equals about 1/8 of your daily ration, but it smells like happiness. You bite into it while perched on a wooden bench under a dusty lantern. It's crispy outside, soft inside, smoky and warm like the hug you never got from your emotionally distant mentor. While chewing, you spot an elderly samurai sitting nearby, quietly sipping tea. His armor is ancient and polished, and he carries a sword so long it might double as a canoe paddle. He glances at you and offers a small nod. You nod back. In samurai language, that counts as a full conversation. Later that evening, you return home to find a letter waiting. Not on parchment, on a thin sliver of wood. It's from your cousin. He's gone to a nearby temple for a few days to reflect. You suspect this means he got tired of sword drills and wants to flirt with philosophical monks. You eat your rice alone tonight. No pickled plums. No miso. Just plain white grains in a lacquer bowl. The taste is clean, familiar, a little boring. But comforting. You prepare your tea, this time a fine sencha, slightly sweet and grassy. You sit on the porch, cradling your cup, watching fireflies dance like tiny lanterns over the fields. You sip slowly. It's moments like this that remind you why tea is more than just a drink. It's an event. A reset button for your soul. The shinoyu, or tea ceremony, is something you've participated in only a handful of times. It's formal, precise, almost sacred. Every movement, from how you bow to how you wipe the bowl, has meaning. Historians still argue whether this ritual was a form of silent rebellion against the constant chaos of war, or if it was just a way for samurai to feel fancy between stabbing people. You've only ever performed the full ritual twice. Both times were for your superior. Both times you were terrified of spilling something. The tea master said the spirit of the ceremony is simplicity and presence. You were mostly focused on not sneezing. You finish your sencha and stare out at the distant hills. The moon is rising. It's round and pale, like a massive rice cake in the sky. You wonder how many other samurai are doing the same thing right now, sipping tea, aching in the knees, trying to find purpose in this mix of paperwork, posture, and polite suffering. Back inside, you unroll a sleeping mat and ease your body down. The room creaks gently with the sounds of settling wood and distant frogs. You think about the samurai in stories, the ones who ride across mountains, fight demons, win wars. And then you think about yourself, who measures grain sacks, files taxes, and gets excited about grilled rice balls. Maybe you're not a hero. Maybe you're something else entirely. A quiet cog in a rice-fueled machine. But there's a strange peace in that, too. As your eyes begin to close, you swear you can still smell the faint smoke of that grilled onigiri. You wake to the sound of a rooster that clearly skipped its etiquette training. The sky is still bruised with pre-dawn light, and your bones feel like they've been politely steamrolled. It's a rest day, at least on paper. But for a samurai, rest is a suspicious word. It usually means, do everything except sword drills. You shuffle outside, feet slapping against the cool wooden floor. The air smells of damp earth and last night's ashes. You sit on the porch, wrap your robe a little tighter, and sip warm barley tea from a chipped ceramic cup. The tea is weak, but it's hot. That's enough. Today, you've been assigned to oversee irrigation channels. Yes, irrigation. Because when you're not training, reporting taxes, or polishing a sword you barely unsheath, you get to make sure water flows politely through the rice paddies. Glamorous. As you walk the narrow dirt paths between flooded fields, you pass farmers bent over in ankle-deep mud. They greet you with respectful bows, deep, but not too deep. Just enough to say, we acknowledge you could technically kill us, but please don't, we have cabbages to tend. You nod in return. You may wear two swords, but here, mud is the real authority. And the smell. A ripe, organic perfume of waterlogged soil, moss, and the occasional frog that apparently skipped breakfast and launches itself at your shin. One of the farmers waves you over to show a collapsed ridge. The water is escaping, making a mockery of neat rows and careful planting. You kneel to examine it, your toes sinking slightly into the muck. It's reparable, but you'll need tools. And strong backs. You volunteer to help. It surprises them. You're a samurai, after all. Manual labor is below your rank, technically. But rice feeds your family too, and besides, it's a good excuse to stretch your legs and pretend you're not entirely useless outside the dojo. You and 2 others rebuild the ridge using woven grass mats and mud packing tools. It takes 2 hours and several mosquito bites, but the water begins flowing properly again. The farmers nod, pleased. One of them offers you a cucumber. Raw. Unwashed. You eat it anyway. It's bitter, refreshing, and somehow exactly what you needed. You sit under a tree, wiping sweat from your brow with your sleeve. Your formal robe is ruined, but you don't care. The sun breaks through the clouds in lazy shafts of light, illuminating the flooded paddies like a mirror cracked into pieces. For once, everything feels aligned. Historians still argue whether samurai regularly engaged in agricultural supervision or if that role was exaggerated by later accounts to romanticize a dull reality. Some say they were warrior administrators. Others think they mostly sat in rooms trying not to fall asleep during harvest reports. All you know is, you've never been so intimately acquainted with a shovel. After lunch, more rice, slightly salted, you check on the local shrine. The old priest greets you with a grin and a prayer that you don't bring bad luck in with your muddy feet. You bow low, then step inside. The shrine smells of cedar and old incense. A statue of a forgotten deity sits beneath silk hangings, watching you with indifference. You light a small stick of incense, press your hands together, and make a wish. Something simple. Like, fewer blisters, or rice with toppings. The priest pours tea, dark and smoky, and tells you about a ghost seen near the bamboo grove. You nod solemnly. It's always a ghost. Every village has one. Sometimes more than one. They mostly show up when someone's looking for an excuse to skip night duty. You promise to check it out, which means you'll stand in a field later with a torch and listen to owls hooting at your paranoia. In the afternoon, you join an elder samurai for a walk along the riverbank. He's thin, with white hair tied back into a perfect topknot. His name is Sadao, and his eyes are sharper than any blade you've handled. Young ones think strength is in the arms, he says, tapping his chest. But it's here. In breath. In patience. You nod, trying to look wise. He stops to pick up a rock, turning it in his hand like a delicate egg. This rock, he says, has sat here longer than any of us. And yet it has never drawn a sword. You're not entirely sure what he means, but you nod again. Probably safest. Sadao tells you stories, of battles fought before you were born, of lords who rose and fell like the tide. Some of the names you recognize. Others are lost to the wind. At one point, he chuckles and mentions a general who accidentally set his own camp on fire trying to boil rice. You laugh, because of course he did. Rice has always been the true enemy. The walk ends at the edge of a quiet forest. You thank Sadao and watch him disappear down a path only he seems to know. You stay a little longer, listening to the leaves rustling overhead. The wind speaks in riddles, or maybe you're just tired. Back home, you wash your robe, scrubbing the mud from the hem. The water turns brown instantly. You hang it to dry, then pour yourself another cup of tea, this time, roasted green tea, hojicha, with a toasty flavor that makes you feel briefly wealthy. As you sip, you read a letter from a friend in another province. He writes of endless bureaucracy, a new kitten, and an infestation of mice that keeps chewing through his sandal straps. You smile. Some things are universal. That night, your dreams are strange. You walk through a rice paddy that stretches to the horizon, each stalk whispering secrets. A cucumber wears armor and asks you for directions. You reply in poetry. The ghost in the bamboo grove waves at you but says nothing. Just a normal night, really. You wake before dawn, your body sore but steady. Rest days, it turns out, are just cleverly disguised work days. But you don't mind. Not anymore. You're not just living as a samurai, you're growing into the rhythm of it. Sword. Mud. Tea. Repeat. The morning is thick with mist. It curls around the eaves of your home like lazy smoke, hiding the hills and turning every tree into a shadowy silhouette. You step outside and feel the dew cling to your sandals. Today, you're on guard duty at the local storehouse. Try to contain your excitement. Guard duty sounds thrilling, doesn't it? Images of vigilant warriors scanning for ninjas and defending treasure flash in your mind. In practice, it mostly involves sitting cross-legged beside a rice barn, listening to birds gossip and occasionally nodding at passers-by like you're being paid in polite acknowledgement. The storehouse is a long, low building made of thick timber, raised on stone blocks to keep out moisture and, more importantly, rats. Inside are rows and rows of tightly sealed straw sacks filled with rice, your village's lifeline and your lord's leverage. In the event of a famine or war, this is what keeps people from turning on each other for half a bowl of dinner. You sit by the door with your short sword resting across your knees. A pot of lukewarm tea simmers beside you, its scent dull but familiar. You take a sip and sigh. It tastes like boiled paper with ambition. Still, it's warm, and that's enough. As the hours crawl by, the most threatening event is a chicken attempting to sneak inside. You block it with the poise of a true warrior, and it squawks indignantly before marching off like it owns the road. You return to your post, your honor intact. Eventually, a merchant arrives, huffing and puffing with a cartload of supplies. He carries bolts of cloth, some dried fish, and, most exciting of all, a few rare bricks of pressed tea from the southern provinces. It's said to be mixed with dried citrus peel and wild herbs, and you're immediately tempted to trade your cousin for a sample. The merchant haggles with the storekeeper while you keep an eye on the cart. Not because of theft, but because you're genuinely curious. The fish smells like it's seen things. Possibly a thunderstorm. Possibly a small fire. Either way, it adds to the overall perfume of the day. As they finish their deal, the merchant offers you a small sample of the exotic tea as thanks. You bow deeply, suppressing the grin trying to escape your stoic facade. You won't brew it right away, though. This is for a special occasion. Or at least a particularly boring evening. Later, a fellow samurai joins you for the second half of the shift. His name is Renji, and he's been studying Chinese calligraphy lately. He talks about brush strokes the way some people talk about swordplay. With passion, reverence, and far too many metaphors involving clouds. Every character is a journey, he says, swirling his brush in the air like a conductor. To write is to breathe ink into silence. You nod, even though you were just wondering what's for lunch. Renji pulls out a scroll and shows you his latest work. The characters are bold and expressive. One looks like it's in a hurry. Another looks drunk. But you nod again and say, very fluid. That seems to satisfy him. You share a lunch of rice balls with pickled vegetables. It's nothing fancy, but Renji insists on arranging the food in a perfect little circle like it's a tea ceremony. He explains that aesthetic balance brings harmony to digestion. You're not convinced, but the circle is kind of pretty. While you eat, he shares a rumor. One of the local monks has been accused of storing sake under his altar. For ceremonial use, he insists. But it seems he's been particularly enthusiastic in his blessings lately. Historians still argue whether monks and sake were a scandalous combo or just another example of spiritual multitasking. After lunch, you both inspect the storehouse's rear wall. There have been reports of termites. Nothing ruins centuries of martial discipline like the sound of tiny bugs eating your rice barn. You knock gently on the beams and listen. No hollow spots. No suspicious crumbles. Just wood doing its job. You spend the last hour carving a small figurine out of scrap wood. It's not very good, it might be a horse or a really concerned dog, but it passes the time. Renji starts 1-2 and somehow makes a crane that looks like it's contemplating philosophy. You both laugh, and for a brief moment, guard duty feels almost like leisure. That evening, with your shift over, you return home and prepare the special tea the merchant gave you. You unwrap it from its cloth wrapping and drop the chunk into hot water. It brews slowly, releasing a scent that reminds you of distant forests and sweet oranges. You sip it while sitting on your porch, watching the last rays of sun scatter through the mist. It's unlike anything you've had before. Earthy, bright, and strange. You feel it bloom behind your eyes, warming your chest in a way that rice never could. As the sky darkens, fireflies return, blinking in lazy spirals. You think of your wooden horse dog. Maybe tomorrow you'll give it to a child in the village. Or hide it somewhere weird, like inside a rice sack, just to see what happens. You pull a blanket over your shoulders and lie back. Your swords are beside you, untouched. They've done nothing today except reflect sunlight and look decorative. But somehow, they still carry weight. You close your eyes to the soft creak of bamboo swaying in the wind. Even in this stillness, you feel like you've moved. Not forward, not backward, just deeper into the quiet rhythm of your strange, sleepy life. And yes, if you're wondering, that chicken from earlier came back. It's roosting on your roof now. Probably dreaming of rice. You wake in the middle of the night to the sound of something. A rustle. A low creak. Maybe the chicken finally declared a coup. You sit up slowly, blanket slipping off your shoulders, eyes still heavy with dreams. Your hand finds the short sword beside your futon, out of habit more than necessity. This happens often in rural provinces. Night noises are like family, annoying, familiar, occasionally threatening. You slip outside. The air is cool, carrying a damp hush. The moon is a blurred pearl behind a shroud of clouds, and every leaf seems to hold its breath. You pause. Listen. There it is again, by the granary. You creep forward, sandals brushing against gravel with the grace of someone trying very hard not to trip over a bucket. It's just a raccoon dog. Tanuki. Fat, bold, and entirely unapologetic. It stares at you like you've just interrupted its dinner plans. You wave your sword gently, not threatening, just a polite, please leave. It waddles off into the brush, tail held high like a tiny noble offended at your audacity. You sigh and lean against the granary wall. It's quiet again. Peaceful, even. You stay there for a few more minutes, breathing in the night air that smells faintly of rice husks and moss. Back inside, you lie awake for a bit, watching shadows move across the ceiling. Eventually, sleep returns, like a lazy friend who didn't mean to leave so early. The next morning, you join a group of samurai heading to a nearby outpost. It's a half-day journey through dense forest and uneven trails. The outpost is part military checkpoint, part rest stop, and part gossip exchange. You pack lightly, rice balls, a water flask, and your best, I'm not judging you, but I am, expression. As you ride, the path narrows. Trees close in, and the occasional wild rooster dashes across like it's running from responsibilities. One of the younger samurai jokes about bandits. Another claims to have seen a fox spirit last time he passed through. It winked at me, he says, dead serious. You pretend to believe him. It's easier that way. You arrive by mid-morning. The outpost is a collection of low huts surrounded by wooden fencing and watchtowers that have definitely seen better days. You dismount and stretch, your knees audibly filing complaints. Inside the main hall, you review messages from the castle, tax updates, patrol schedules, and a poetic weather report that's probably just an excuse for someone to use the word melancholy 5 times. You nod like it all makes sense. There's a tense moment when 2 samurai argue over tea allocations. Apparently, someone took more than their fair share of roasted barley blend. You intervene diplomatically, by offering your own share and calling it a gesture of unity. They grumble, but accept. Crisis averted. Barely. Later, you tour the perimeter with the outpost commander, a wiry woman named Tomiko who could probably defeat you in a duel using only her sarcasm. She points out a weak section of fencing and mutters something about needing more nails and fewer poets in uniform. As you walk, she shares tales of her time guarding a mountain pass, sleepless nights, bears, snowstorms, and a bandit who tried to rob her while sneezing. Worst timing of his life, she says, grinning. You admire her grit. And her collection of snacks. She carries dried persimmons like precious jewels. By midday, you've checked the storerooms, greeted the guards, and written a small report with your neatest brushwork. Your calligraphy still looks like a spider got into the ink, but at least it's legible. Mostly. Before leaving, you're invited to a small meal with the outpost staff. It's basic fare, rice, a bit of miso, and pickled radish. But the company makes it richer. You sit cross-legged in a circle, listening to stories about haunted wells and a rice thief who dressed as a deer. Historians still argue whether such disguises were real or just desperate attempts at rural comedy. One man sings a short folk song about the harvest moon. It's out of tune and vaguely about potatoes, but everyone claps anyway. Even you. Because moments like these are rare, and clapping is easier than explaining pitch. On the return journey, you take a different path, one that cuts through old shrine grounds. The stones are cracked, the torii gate half collapsed, and moss rules here like an emerald empress. You pause to offer a coin and a bow, just in case any lingering spirits are feeling particularly vengeful today. At one point, you spot a child peeking out from behind a tree. Dirty face, wide eyes, not moving. You stop, crouch, and ask softly if they're lost. No answer. Just more wide-eyed blinking. Then a sharp giggle as two more kids leap from the bushes. Ambush. They hurl leaves at you with war cries that sound suspiciously like TEA. You play along, staggering backward, raising your arms in mock surrender. The kids cheer and declare themselves victorious. You promise to report their bravery to the daimyo himself. They demand sweets as tribute. You offer a rice cracker instead. Negotiation successful. By the time you return home, the sky has turned golden, and your legs are sore from both walking and accidental leaf warfare. You place your gear aside, change into lighter clothes, and brew yourself a proper cup of roasted tea. You sip it on the porch, legs stretched out, eyes half closed. The world slows down again. The wind rustles the paper screen doors, and somewhere in the distance, a bell rings for the evening prayer. You think about the raccoon dog, the fox spirit, the potato song. And all the invisible threads that tie this sleepy, absurd life together. Maybe you're not a great warrior. Maybe you'll never ride into glorious battle. But you can guard rice, settle tea disputes, and pretend to lose to children. And tonight, that feels like enough. The days flow together now like ripples in a pond, indistinguishable and yet somehow forming the essence of your life. Another morning, another rice ball. You wake up to the sun, a solid orb already high in the sky, as if it has no interest in waiting for you to get moving. Today, you've been assigned to a patrol. The air smells slightly of smoke and pine, a gentle reminder of the forest beyond the village and the occasional fire that threatens to devour everything in its path. Fortunately, the flames always seem to remember their manners and stop just before they reach civilization. It's as if the land itself knows where the boundaries are. Your sword is strapped to your back, the leather worn from years of use. It's lighter than it used to be, not just from the wear but from the absence of actual battles. You don't mind this, though. You found that peace has its own kind of weight, a heaviness that settles into the bones and refuses to leave. You make your way to the edge of the village where the path fades into dense woods. The trees are tall and ancient, their trunks gnarled and twisted like old hands. In the distance, the mountains loom, mist-wrapped and foreboding. It's said that bandits hide in those mountains, but you haven't seen any of them, not in years. They're like the fox spirits, more myth than menace. Your patrol is uneventful. You check the perimeter, nodding at the few farmers who work the outskirts. They wave back, pausing their work to offer you a brief smile, the kind that only people who've been awake for too many hours can give. You nod in return and continue your walk. The sounds of your sandals on dirt are a familiar rhythm. No bandits. No fox spirits. Just the chirping of cicadas and the occasional rustle of a rabbit darting through the underbrush. You stop by the creek that runs through the far edge of the village. The water is clear, cold, and swift. You kneel down, cupping your hands to drink. The water is refreshing, like it's been waiting for you, as if the creek knew you would come today. It's a small luxury, this sip of clear water in the middle of the forest. As you stand up, brushing the grass from your legs, you spot something in the distance, a lone figure walking towards you, moving slowly and with purpose. At first, you assume it's just another villager, but as the figure comes closer, you see the distinctive black and gold armor of a samurai. The man's face is hidden behind a wide-brimmed straw hat, but his posture is upright, confident. He doesn't look like a local. You squint into the sunlight. He's not alone. A small retinue of samurai follows him, their armor gleaming even in the muted light of the forest. You stand straighter, feeling the weight of your sword at your side. There's no reason to think they're here for trouble. After all, this is a peaceful village. But you've been trained to be cautious. As the figure gets closer, he raises his hand in a gesture of greeting. You bow slightly, offering the respectful nod that all samurai give when meeting one another. It's the proper thing to do, and you don't want to appear rude. The man tilts his head slightly, as if measuring you. You are the guardian of this village's edge, he asks, his voice carrying the kind of authority you don't usually encounter here. His eyes, briefly visible beneath the shadow of his hat, are sharp, focused on you, sizing you up. Yes, sir, you reply, straightening your back. My patrol covers the perimeter. No signs of trouble. He nods, seemingly satisfied with the answer. Good. I have been sent by the daimyo to ensure the safety of this region. You may have heard that there are rumors of unrest in the neighboring province. You feel your stomach tighten slightly. Rumors of unrest are always followed by something worse, raids, invasions, or worse still, the presence of spies. But you don't let the concern show on your face. Rumors, yes, you reply cautiously. But no confirmed reports, sir. The samurai tilts his head again, this time with a hint of curiosity. I see. And how long have you been assigned to this village, guardian? You think about it for a moment. The years have blurred together in a way that makes it feel like you've always been here. Many seasons, you say simply. This village has seen peace. It has grown accustomed to it. The man regards you for a moment longer before speaking again. Do you think peace is something that can be trusted, or is it simply a lull before the storm? You pause. It's not a question you've ever really thought about. Peace, to you, is simply the absence of violence, the routine of rice fields and guard duty. The days blend together, one after the other. But his question unsettles something deep within you. I think peace is something earned, you finally say, surprised by the weight of your own words. It's not given. It has to be protected. The samurai seems to consider this for a moment. Then, he nods. Well said. Perhaps this village is more resilient than I anticipated. He turns to his retinue, and with a brief motion, they continue walking. As they pass, you bow again, a little deeper this time. You don't know who this man is or why he's come, but his presence has stirred something in you, a reminder that the world outside the village is still alive with danger, even if it feels far away. After they disappear into the trees, you remain standing by the creek for a while longer, staring at the water as it flows past. You wonder if you'll ever be tested. Whether your life will remain peaceful or if, one day, the storm will find you. For now, though, all you can do is keep guarding the rice, keep sipping the tea, and wait. You turn and begin the long walk back to the village. The path feels heavier now, as if something has shifted, even though the day remains the same. You pass the farmers again, who wave, their faces lined with the quiet weariness of labor. They probably won't ever know about the stranger who came to their village, or about the quiet questions that lingered in the air. By the time you reach home, the sun is beginning to dip behind the mountains, painting the sky in hues of purple and gold. You sit down to your evening meal, a simple bowl of rice and vegetables. The flavor is comforting, but somehow less satisfying than it should be. The questions remain, hovering like shadows at the edges of your mind. The world outside may be quiet now, but you know it's never as still as it seems. The days drag on, their rhythm familiar, even soothing. The village has not changed, nor has the patrol route. Everything falls into place as you slip through another sunrise, another round of rice balls, and the endless, quiet duty of guarding the perimeter. In the evenings, you sit on the porch, tea in hand, watching the sky turn from a sharp blue to the soft pink of dusk. You listen to the faint sounds of the world, the wind in the trees, the calls of distant birds, and it's enough. For now, it's enough. But you can't shake the nagging feeling that something is coming. The samurai's visit lingers in your thoughts. He never gave his name, and though his words were measured, there was something about him that made you feel like he was measuring more than just your answers. That look, the way he asked about peace, it was a question that had no easy answer. It's early one morning when the news arrives. The messenger appears out of nowhere, on horseback, kicking up dust and stopping just outside the village gates. You're sipping tea, sitting in your usual spot by the door, when he arrives. His face is grim, and there's a tension in his posture that makes your stomach tighten. "Guardian," he says, dismounting swiftly. "There is word of trouble in the neighboring province. Bandits, yes, but worse than that, there are rumors of an army massing. A small one, but enough to stir concern. The daimyo has ordered that all local samurai are to prepare for possible action." Your heart skips a beat. You've heard the rumors, of course. Bandits in the mountains. Whispers of a small army gathering. But you never took them seriously. They always felt like distant threats, like stories told to frighten children. Now, though, it's different. Now, it feels real. Who is leading this force, you ask, trying to keep your voice steady. The messenger hesitates for a moment before answering. That's the troubling part. No one knows. It's a collection of outlaws, deserters, and others. Historians still argue over who exactly is behind the movement, but it's enough to put the daimyo on alert. You nod, the weight of his words settling heavily on your shoulders. Bandits are one thing. You've faced them before. But an organized force of any kind is something else entirely. It's a force that threatens everything you've worked to protect. The village, the rice fields, the simple peace you've come to rely on. The messenger hands you a small scroll, the seal of the daimyo stamped in red wax. "Prepare," he says, turning to leave. This is not a time for hesitation. You watch him ride off, disappearing into the morning mist. The world is still quiet, but you can feel the change in the air. It's as if the wind itself is holding its breath, waiting for something to break. For the first time in a long while, you feel the true weight of your sword at your side. It's not just a weapon anymore, it's a symbol, a reminder of the responsibility you carry. You've guarded the perimeter for years, keeping the peace as best as you could. But this feels different. You can no longer pretend that peace is an unshakable thing. It's fragile, and right now, it's on the edge of breaking. You finish your tea slowly, letting the warmth settle in your chest. The village is still peaceful for now. But the storm is coming. And when it does, you'll have to be ready. Later that day, you meet with the other samurai. The mood is tense, the air thick with unspoken fears. There's talk of gathering forces, of preparing for a potential siege, of fortifying the village's defenses. The older samurai seem confident, but there's a flicker of doubt in their eyes. They've seen conflict before, but never like this. One of them, a grizzled veteran named Isao, leans in close. "We've faced raiders before," he says in a low voice. But this is different. An army, it's more than just the usual bandits. I don't know if we're ready for this. You don't know what to say. You've been trained for situations like this, but the truth is, you've always hoped you'd never have to face them. The idea of defending the village, of standing in the face of an organized force, is a weight you've never truly carried until now. The conversation continues, but your mind drifts back to the samurai who visited you days ago. You wonder if he knew this was coming. If he had some inkling of what was about to unfold. You shake your head, pushing the thought aside. It doesn't matter. What matters is what you do next. You return home that evening, your heart heavy, your thoughts clouded. There's nothing to do now but wait. You don't know when the storm will come, or in what form it will take, but you know it's coming. You can feel it in your bones. That night, as you lie in bed, you can't sleep. The village is too quiet. The distant sound of an owl's call seems to echo louder than usual. The world feels like it's holding its breath, as if it knows something you don't. You rise from your futon, stepping out into the cool night air. The stars above are sharp, like tiny pinpricks in the vast, dark sky. You walk to the edge of the village and stand there, staring out at the forest. The wind stirs the leaves, and the world seems to be waiting. You take a deep breath, steadying yourself. The storm is coming, but you will stand firm. You will guard the village, protect the rice, and face whatever challenges lie ahead. It's your duty. And it's a duty you will carry, no matter what. For now, though, all you can do is wait, and prepare. The days seem to stretch longer now, a palpable tension in the air. Each morning, the sun rises with a sense of finality, as though it's warning you, the storm is coming. You feel the weight of the village's expectations pressing down on you, and despite the calm exterior you present, inside, you're a tangle of nerves. The others don't talk about it much, there's a kind of quiet acceptance among your fellow samurai. The tension is there, though, in every glance, in every quiet conversation behind closed doors. No one dares say it aloud, but everyone knows, something is coming. The patrols become more frequent. Instead of just keeping the edges of the village safe, you're now tasked with scanning the horizon, looking for signs of movement in the mountains. On the surface, it seems like nothing has changed. The forest still whispers with the same rustling of leaves, the same distant calls of birds, and the ever-present hum of cicadas. But beneath it all, there's an unease you can't shake. One afternoon, while walking along the edge of the village with a younger samurai named Takao, you spot something strange. A figure, cloaked in a tattered robe, appears on the road leading from the mountains. He's walking slowly, his movements deliberate, and he doesn't seem to notice you at first. Takao is the first to spot him, his hand instinctively going to the hilt of his sword. "Who is that?" he mutters, a nervous edge to his voice. You stop, your own gaze following Takao's. The figure doesn't appear threatening, but there's something unsettling about the way he walks, like someone who's been through something that's left them broken. The man comes closer, and you can make out the worn features of his face. He looks tired, too tired, as though he's been walking for days, maybe weeks. His clothes are ragged, and his shoes are nothing but strips of cloth wrapped around his feet. As he draws nearer, he raises his head slightly. His eyes are dark, sunken, and haunted. It's hard to say what it is about his gaze that unsettles you, but it's a look that speaks of something deep and ancient, something that's seen too much. "Are you lost, traveler?" you ask, trying to keep your voice steady. You don't want to alarm him, but you also know better than to let your guard down around strangers, especially when there's so much uncertainty in the air. The man stops a few paces away from you, looking between you and Takao. His lips part, as if he's about to speak, but no words come out at first. Finally, after a long moment, he exhales, his voice barely more than a whisper. "The mountains are changing," he says. "There's something in the hills. Something that shouldn't be there." Takao shifts uneasily, and you feel a prickle of dread run through you. "What do you mean?" you ask, stepping a little closer to the stranger. What's in the hills? The man hesitates again, his eyes flicking nervously towards the mountains. He seems as if he's searching for the right words, or perhaps the courage to speak them. It's the bandits, he mutters finally, his voice low and strained. They're no longer just bandits. They've joined forces. There are others with them now. A strange group. I don't know who they are. But they're not like anything I've ever seen. Tikau opens his mouth, ready to speak, but you cut him off. Are you saying the bandits are planning something? A raid? The man shakes his head, his eyes wild now, darting around as though the very earth itself might open up and swallow him. Not a raid, he whispers. A war. They're gathering something. I don't know what it is, but it's coming. And you're all in danger. There's a heavy pause as his words sink in, settling like stones in the pit of your stomach. A war. You've heard the rumors, of course, but to hear it spoken aloud by someone who's clearly been through something, someone who's seen things you can't even begin to imagine, it sends a chill down your spine. Tikau steps forward, his hand still resting on the hilt of his sword. Where did you come from? He demands, his voice stern. Who are you? The man's eyes flick back to Tikau, and for a moment, it seems like he's considering running. But then, he seems to collapse in on himself, his posture slumping with exhaustion. I've seen things. In the hills. They aren't just men. There's something else. Something worse. They're waiting for the signal. And when they come, you won't be ready. He takes a step back, almost stumbling as he does. You have to leave. Leave before it's too late. You exchange a glance with Tikau, both of you silently processing the man's words. You can't help but feel that there's truth in what he's saying. There's something about him, something in his desperate eyes, that tells you this isn't just some raving lunatic. He knows something. Something you can't yet understand. But there's no time to dwell on it now. The man has already turned, shuffling away from you in the direction of the village's edge. His words echo in your mind, they're waiting for the signal. Tikau looks at you, his brow furrowed. What should we do? He asks, voice trembling slightly. Should we tell the others? You pause for a moment, considering. You know what you have to do. There's no time to waste. If this war is really coming, if those bandits have truly allied themselves with something darker, something worse, then you need to prepare. The village is depending on you. You gather the others, you say quietly. We need to make sure everyone is ready. We don't know when they'll strike, but we'll be prepared when they do. As Tikau hurries off to carry out your orders, you turn back toward the mountains, your heart pounding. The wind stirs again, and for the first time in what feels like ages, the air seems cold, unnaturally so. The storm is no longer just a distant threat. It's here. And you're at its center. The next few days pass in a blur of urgency. The once peaceful village is now filled with whispers of fear, anxiety, and preparation. You and the other samurai work relentlessly to fortify the defenses, erecting makeshift barricades around the perimeter, reinforcing the gates, and ensuring that every able-bodied man is ready to fight. The farmers, the craftsmen, the elders, everyone has a role to play in this new reality. The older samurai, with their years of experience, take charge, organizing the militia and training the villagers in basic defense tactics. You can see the stress etched into their faces, the weight of their knowledge that they're preparing for something far beyond the usual skirmish. They've faced small bandit raids before, but never anything like this. Not a full-fledged war. As you walk through the village, checking on the progress, you notice the change in the villagers. The once carefree chatter has been replaced by hurried conversations, anxious glances, and the constant sound of wood being hammered into place. The children are kept inside, their faces pressed against windows as they watch the activity outside. You can feel their uncertainty in the air, a tension that makes the very ground beneath you seem unstable. You find yourself walking to the edge of the village, your sword by your side, scanning the horizon once again. The mountains loom in the distance, their peaks obscured by mist, but you can't shake the feeling that something is hiding just beyond the reach of your vision. There's a growing sense of dread in your chest, a quiet whisper that tells you the battle is closer than you realize. One evening, as you sit down for a rare moment of rest, the village elder approaches you. His steps are slow, his back hunched with age, but his eyes are sharp and unwavering. "Guardian," he says, his voice calm but tinged with the heaviness of impending doom. "The wind carries a strange scent tonight. It smells like fire." You nod, your mind immediately jumping to the worst possible scenario. The bandits, or whatever they are, have been known to set villages alight in the past. A fire could spread quickly in the dry season, consuming everything in its path. It would be a devastating blow to the village, one that might be impossible to recover from. "I know," you reply, standing up to face him. "We've prepared as best we can. We'll defend the village." The elder watches you for a moment, his gaze lingering on the horizon. "You know, when I was young, I fought in a war not unlike this. We thought we were ready too. But sometimes, the enemy is more than just the soldiers you face on the battlefield. Sometimes, the real battle is the one inside yourself, the fear, the doubt, the uncertainty. It's what breaks a man." You look at him, surprised by his words. The elder is known for his wisdom, but this seems different. He's speaking from experience, from something deeper. He's seen war up close. He knows what it's like to face the unknown. "I'll remember that," you say quietly, but deep down, you wonder if you'll be strong enough to face whatever is coming. The fear in your heart is something you've kept hidden, even from yourself. You've always been a protector, a defender, but now, in the face of this new threat, you feel the same uncertainty as the villagers. Later that night, as you sit alone in your small hut, you stare at the walls, lost in thought. The wind outside is picking up, and the trees sway gently, their leaves rustling like whispers. You find yourself thinking of the samurai who visited you days ago, the one who spoke of peace. His words echo in your mind. It is the warrior's burden to protect, even when he does not know the battle he faces. It's a strange thing, this burden. It's heavy, it's relentless, and yet, it's something you've chosen. You've chosen to be a guardian, a protector of peace. But now, peace feels like something that is slipping away from you, as if it were never real to begin with. You stand up abruptly, your thoughts too heavy to carry any longer. You need to move, to do something. You step outside into the cool night air, feeling the crispness of the wind against your skin. The stars above are sharp and bright, their light cutting through the darkness like knives. You take a deep breath, trying to steady yourself. There's no time for doubt now. You don't have the luxury of uncertainty. Your eyes shift toward the mountains once more. The threat is coming from there. You don't know when, but you can feel it deep in your bones. It's only a matter of time. You walk to the edge of the village, where the ground drops away into a steep ravine. The wind howls through the trees, and for a moment, the sound almost seems like a distant voice calling to you. You close your eyes, letting the wind carry away the weight of the day, the worry, the fear. It's a moment of clarity, of peace, before the storm hits. In the distance, you hear the faint sound of drums. It's so soft at first that you almost think you imagined it. But then, it grows louder, closer. It's a signal, a call to arms. The bandits, or whoever they are on the move. You turn on your heel, the weight of your sword at your side reminding you of the responsibility you carry. It's time. The village is depending on you, and you won't let it fall without a fight. The days blur into one another now, filled with an ever-looming sense of dread. The drums from the mountains grow louder every night, and you can't shake the feeling that the enemy is closing in. Your patrols become more frequent, more tense. The villagers, once so trusting in their peaceful lives, now look at you with a kind of anxious gratitude. They know that everything depends on you and your fellow samurai to hold the line. The air grows thicker with each passing day, the weight of uncertainty pressing down on everyone's shoulders. In the mornings, you hear the clinking of armor and the sharp scrape of sword blades being sharpened. At night, you hear hushed whispers in the dark, words of fear that are quickly swallowed up by the night. But it's not the fear of the bandits that bothers you most, it's the fear of what lies beyond them. The man who warned you, the traveler who spoke of something worse in the hills, still haunts your thoughts. You can't shake his words from your mind. They're waiting for the signal. What kind of enemy could inspire such terror in a man? You've faced death on the battlefield before, but this feels different. This isn't just about warriors with swords and shields. There's something more, something dark and ancient that seems to be gathering in the mountains. And you feel, deep in your gut, that you're running out of time. One afternoon, while you're standing guard on the outskirts of the village, a runner approaches, a young boy, barely old enough to be sent on such a dangerous errand. His face is pale, and his breath comes in sharp, quick gasps as he hands you a message. The seal is unfamiliar, a symbol of something you don't recognize. You break it open and read the letter quickly, your pulse quickening as you do. It's a warning, but not one you expected. The bandits are not the only threat. Something far worse stirs in the mountains. The ones you seek are no mere men. They are led by something ancient, something that has not walked this land in centuries. You must prepare yourselves for what is coming, and be ready to face not just an enemy, but an ancient power. The words are cryptic, but you don't need to read them twice to understand the gravity of the situation. The bandits, if they ever existed at all, are only pawns in a much larger game. This is no longer a battle for survival, it's a struggle against something that defies logic, that moves in the shadows, and is older than any of the stories you've ever heard. You feel your breath catch in your chest. The weight of responsibility is nearly suffocating. How do you prepare for something like this? How can you fight an enemy that you don't even understand? You gather the others quickly, your mind racing as you process the letter's contents. The elder is among them, his face creased with worry as he listens to you read the message aloud. His eyes, which have always been calm and steady, now hold a deep, haunting sadness. I feared this day would come, the elder says quietly, his voice heavy. The stories, the old tales. They spoke of an ancient force that dwells in the mountains. A power older than the first samurai, older than the land itself. It is said to be the remnant of a forgotten era, a time when men and gods lived together. You stare at him, your mind spinning. What does this mean? Who are these people? And what is this ancient power? The elder shakes his head slowly, as if he doesn't have the answers, or maybe as if he's reluctant to share them. It is not for us to know. But we are not the first to face this. Our ancestors fought this force long ago, and they sealed it away. But the seal has weakened over time. And now, I fear, it has broken. A chill runs down your spine. You've never heard these stories before. The elder's words are like a key unlocking a door to a history that's been buried for generations. The samurai, the warriors who fought to protect the land, were never just protectors of the people, they were protectors of something much older, much more dangerous. Then what do we do? Tikao asks, his voice shaky. He's been a part of the village for as long as you can remember, but you've never seen him like this, unsettled, unsure, the fear evident in his eyes. The elder looks at you all, his gaze heavy. There is one way, he says, his voice low and steady. There is a place, deep in the mountains, where the old seal was laid. If you can find it, you might be able to restore it, reinforce it. But it will not be easy. The path is treacherous, and there are those who will try to stop you. You nod slowly, the weight of the decision pressing down on you. You know what you have to do. There's no other choice. If there's any hope of saving the village, of stopping this ancient power from consuming everything, you'll have to find the seal and restore it before it's too late. The elder stands tall despite his age, his hands resting lightly on his staff. The journey will be long. The road will be perilous. But the future of the village, and perhaps the entire land, rests on your shoulders. And so, without another word, you set your course. The mountains are waiting, and you know that what you face there will determine the fate of everyone you've sworn to protect. As you gather your weapons and prepare for the journey, you can't help but wonder what lies ahead. Is the ancient power truly real? Can the seal be restored? And if you fail, what will happen to the world you know? The morning light is dim as you set out, the village already far behind you. You gather your closest companions, Takao, the blacksmith's son, Kenshir, a samurai whose loyalty to the village is beyond question, and Yuki, a skilled archer who is quick with her bow and even quicker with her wit. Together, you make your way toward the mountains, the weight of the task ahead settling heavily on your shoulders. The path is rough and steep, a winding trail that seems to climb forever into the dense forests. The air grows cooler as you ascend, the scent of pine and earth growing stronger with every step. The further you go, the more you feel as though you're stepping into another world, a place untouched by the troubles of the village below. It's strange, peaceful, even, yet there's an unease that clings to the air. It's as though the mountains themselves are holding their breath, waiting for something. You walk in silence for the first few hours, each of you lost in your thoughts. The journey is long, and the path is treacherous, but it's the weight of the unknown that is most oppressive. What lies ahead? What kind of force could have been sealed away for so long, and why now? I never thought it would come to this, Takao mutters, breaking the silence. We've always been at peace. I thought the worst we'd face would be a few bandits looking to raid the village. You can't help but agree, though you say nothing. The simplicity of it all seems so far away now. You've spent your life as a protector, as a guardian, but this? This feels different. This feels like something that no amount of training, no number of swords, could prepare you for. As you continue up the mountain, the air grows thinner, and the landscape changes. The trees give way to jagged rocks and uneven ground. The forest feels farther away, replaced by an eerie quiet that presses in from all sides. The further you go, the more the feeling of ancient power weighs on you. It's like something is watching, waiting, and it's impossible to shake the sensation that you're not alone. By midday, you reach a clearing at the foot of a towering cliff. The sun is high in the sky, casting long shadows over the rocky terrain. There's something about the place that feels wrong. The silence here is deafening, as though the air itself is holding its breath. Something's off, Kenshir mutters, his hand hovering near his sword hilt. Agreed, you reply, scanning the surroundings. It's difficult to pinpoint exactly what it is, but there's a tangible sense of unease in the air. Yuki, who has been eerily quiet, speaks up. Do you think we're getting close? The stories, they said there was an ancient temple hidden in these mountains, a place where the seal was laid. You nod, trying to push the fear down. We'll find it. We have to. As you begin to climb the rocky outcrop, the path narrowing and becoming more precarious, the atmosphere grows even more oppressive. Every step seems to echo in the stillness, and with each echo, your heart beats faster. There's something ancient about this place. The stones beneath your feet seem worn by centuries of weather and time, but they also seem to carry a weight, like they know more than they're letting on. Finally, after what feels like an eternity of climbing, you reach the top of the cliff. There, hidden in the shadows, is the entrance to a cave. It's barely noticeable, just a dark opening in the rock, as though the mountain itself is trying to keep it hidden. This must be it, you whisper. Your voice feels too loud in the stillness, as if the very mountain is shushing you. You step forward, your companions close behind you. The darkness of the cave seems to swallow you whole, the light from outside fading as you enter. The air inside is thick with dust, and the ground beneath your feet is uneven. You can barely make out the shapes of ancient carvings on the walls, faded and worn by time. We need to be careful, Kenshir says, his voice low, eyes scanning the darkness. We don't know what's inside. You nod in agreement, but there's something in the back of your mind, a nagging feeling that you can't quite shake. The cave feels wrong, as though it was never meant to be found. You move deeper into the cave, the path narrowing even further. The walls seem to close in around you, and the air grows colder with every step. As you walk, you can't help but feel the weight of history pressing down on you. Whatever happened here, whatever sealed away the ancient power, you know that it's connected to the very land you're standing on. Suddenly, the path opens into a vast chamber, the ceiling high and vaulted, supported by columns that rise from the ground like skeletal fingers reaching for the heavens. In the center of the chamber is a massive stone altar, covered in moss and lichen. It's old, far older than anything you've seen before, and yet, it emanates an undeniable power. The very air around it seems to hum with energy. "This is it," Yuki whispers, her voice full of awe. "This is where it happened." You approach the altar cautiously, the hairs on the back of your neck standing on end. You can feel the energy in the room, a strange, pulsing sensation that makes the ground beneath your feet vibrate. This is where the seal was laid, where the ancient power was locked away. But now, it feels as though the seal is weakening. A faint crack runs across the stone altar, barely visible but undeniable. The seal is breaking. You reach out to touch it, your fingers grazing the stone, and in that moment, the ground trembles beneath you. The air grows cold, and the humming energy in the chamber intensifies, swirling around you like a living thing. Something is coming. The ground beneath your feet shakes, sending a ripple of panic through your body. You steady yourself, gripping the stone of the altar for support, but the vibrations only grow stronger. Your heart races, the sound of it pounding in your ears as the atmosphere around you grows heavier, thicker. The air feels charged, alive with an unseen force. You turn quickly to your companions. Takao's face is pale, his sword drawn and ready. Kenshi's eyes are wide, scanning the chamber for any sign of movement. Yuki stands just behind you, her bow in hand, but she, too, looks uncertain, her gaze flicking from the altar to the dark corners of the cave as though waiting for something to emerge. "What is this?" Takao breathes, his voice tight with fear. "What did we awaken?" Before you can answer, a low rumble echoes through the chamber, like the growl of some ancient beast stirring from its slumber. The walls of the cave tremble, and dust falls from the ceiling, scattering across the floor like dry leaves. You take a step back, instinctively drawing your sword. The vibration is now more like a heartbeat, deep and resonant, as if the very mountain is alive and reacting to something that shouldn't be disturbed. Then, as though the mountain itself is exhaling, a gust of cold wind sweeps through the chamber, carrying with it the faintest whisper of voices, distant, incomprehensible words that seem to echo from the deepest recesses of time. It's a sound that chills you to your core, not because of its volume, but because of its presence. It's as though the voices are all around you, not just in the cave, but in your mind, brushing against your thoughts. You spin around, your heart skipping a beat. The shadows in the far corners of the chamber shift, but it's not the natural play of light and darkness. No, these shadows are moving, stretching, pulling themselves into the shape of something else. Something ancient. Out of the shadows, figures begin to emerge, tall, draped in tattered robes that seem to shimmer with an eerie glow, their faces hidden beneath hoods. They move slowly, deliberately, as if they've been waiting for this moment. You can feel the weight of their gaze on you, though you can't see their eyes. It's as though their very presence fills the room, taking up more space with every breath you take. "They are not human," Kensher mutters, his voice tight with disbelief. "What are they?" "Ghosts," you whisper, though even you aren't sure if that's what they are. "Whatever they are, they're not of this world, not of your world. And they don't look like they're here to chat." The figures move forward, their footsteps echoing unnaturally in the chamber. The humming energy in the air grows more intense, and the temperature plummets, sending a chill down your spine. You step forward instinctively, your sword held tightly in your hands. This is no longer about restoring a seal. This is about surviving whatever ancient force has been unleashed. The figures continue to approach, but they don't speak, their silence more deafening than any words could be. You can feel them surrounding you, their presence oppressive and suffocating. The crack in the altar widens, the stone shifting, groaning under the pressure of whatever power is stirring within. And then, with a suddenness that sends a shock through your body, the ground shakes violently. The walls of the cave seem to tremble, as though the mountain itself is in pain. You fall to your knees, your sword slipping from your grasp as the energy in the room reaches a fever pitch. The figures around you pause, and the shadows stretch even further, as though they're feeding on the growing power. Hold on, you shout, but your voice is swallowed by the roar of the energy surrounding you. Tikau is the first to recover, his hand shooting out to grasp your arm, pulling you to your feet. We need to leave. Now. But before you can respond, the stone altar shatters with a deafening crash, splitting wide open. From within, a blinding light erupts, bathing the entire chamber in an otherworldly glow. It's not just light, it's pure power, raw and untamed, spilling out like a flood, flooding the chamber, swirling around you and your companions. You raise your arm instinctively to shield your eyes, but the light is blinding, burning, and yet you can't look away. The shadows writhe and twist, as though they're alive, as though they're being consumed by the light, and you hear a low, guttural sound, something like a roar, but also like a whisper. It's the sound of something waking, something ancient and powerful that has been waiting for centuries. Get back! Yuki screams, but her voice is lost in the chaos of the light. The shadows retreat, their forms flickering in and out of existence, but the light only grows brighter, its power overwhelming. You stumble back, your mind racing. This isn't just a power, it's a force of nature. You know now that this isn't just about protecting the village or restoring an old seal. This is something far bigger than you, something that could change the very world you live in. But then, just as suddenly as it began, the light fades. The energy in the room ebbs, leaving behind only a heavy, oppressive silence. The shadows retreat, their forms dissipating like smoke, leaving only the remnants of their presence behind. You breathe in, your chest tight, trying to steady yourself, but the air feels wrong now. It feels thick, as if the very atmosphere has changed. That wasn't supposed to happen, Tikau mutters, his voice hoarse. You look at your companions, Kenshiro, Yuki, Tikau, all of them shaken, unsure of what just transpired. The crack in the altar has disappeared, and the stone is now smooth once again, as if nothing had ever happened. But you know that something has changed. The seal is no longer intact, and whatever ancient power was contained here is now free, or at least partially awakened. You turn to the others, your voice steady despite the storm raging inside you. We need to get back to the village. We've awakened something, and we don't know what it will do. You gather your things quickly, your heart pounding in your chest. The journey down the mountain is no easier than the ascent, the weight of what you've just witnessed hanging over you like a dark cloud. The air is still charged with energy, and every step you take feels as though the ground beneath you is shifting, unstable. But there's no time to dwell on what has happened. The village needs you. The people are depending on you. And whatever you awakened in the mountains is coming for them. The journey back down the mountain is almost worse than the climb itself. The weight of the unknown presses heavily on you, each step dragging you further into a sense of foreboding. The path seems even more treacherous now, the rocks beneath your feet slippery with the cold sweat of unease. You glance over your shoulder every few moments, half expecting to see shadows creeping up behind you, their cold hands reaching for you. But the only thing that follows you is silence, a heavy, unnatural quiet that stretches on far longer than it should. Yuki leads the way, her bow still drawn, eyes darting back and forth as though the air itself might carry some hidden threat. Tikau follows close behind, his hand on the hilt of his sword, his gaze never settling. Kenshiro stays by your side, his usual confidence gone, replaced by an edge of uncertainty. What do you think happened back there? Tikau asks in a hushed tone, his voice tense. You don't have an answer. You can feel the weight of the power you've unleashed on the back of your neck, and though you wish you could find the right words, the truth is that you don't know what's coming next. You don't know what it is, how it will affect your village, or even if you can stop it. We need to warn the village, you say quietly. We need to make sure they're prepared. There's no need for more words. The truth hangs heavy between you all. Whatever you awoke in that cave, it's not something you can control. You don't know if you can even escape it. As you approach the foot of the mountain, the sun begins to set, casting long, eerie shadows across the landscape. The village is still a few miles away, but you can already feel the tension in the air, as if the very earth beneath you is anticipating the storm to come. The trees around you have an unsettling stillness, as though even the wildlife knows something's wrong. The closer you get to the village, the more you can sense that something is amiss. You can't explain it, but the air feels thick, almost suffocating. The once familiar scent of the village is absent, replaced by something sharp, something unsettling. The birds that once filled the trees with song are silent now. The wind has died down completely, leaving only a faint, almost imperceptible hum in the distance. You quicken your pace. Whatever it is, whatever you disturbed, it's not just some ancient power locked away in the mountains anymore. It's coming for the village. It's coming for your home. When you reach the outskirts of the village, you can already see the signs, smoke rising from the rooftops, flickering shadows darting in and out of view. The village is in chaos. People are running through the streets, shouting in panic. You can hear the clanging of metal as the village's defenders prepare for something they can't even see. You don't waste time. You push forward, running through the streets, your heart pounding in your chest. You spot the village elder standing in the town square, his face pale and drawn. He sees you approaching and walks toward you with a grim expression. "Something's happening," he says without preamble. "I can feel it. The air is thick with something. Is it what you found in the mountains?" You nod slowly, your throat tight with the weight of it. "We disturbed something ancient. A force that was sealed away. It's free now." The elder's eyes widen in fear, and he glances around as though expecting something to emerge from the shadows. "What can we do?" You look over your shoulder at your companions. "We need to prepare the village. We need to strengthen the defenses, gather everyone together. The seal might have been broken, but we can still try to fight back." There's a long pause before the elder speaks again, his voice trembling slightly. "If it's true, if what you say is true, then we may already be too late." You try not to let the fear seep into your voice. "We can still try. We have to." You don't wait for a response. You turn on your heel and shout for the villagers to gather. You direct them to the central square, where they can help fortify the village defenses. The chaos around you only intensifies, as people begin to realize the full extent of the danger. Some flee the village, their faces stricken with fear, while others stand their ground, preparing for whatever's to come. You help organize the defense as best as you can, directing the villagers to set up barricades and gather their weapons. Kenshir and Takao join you, their faces hard with determination, and Yuki moves swiftly through the crowd, readying her bow for whatever might emerge from the shadows. As the last of the villagers gather in the square, you take a deep breath, your hands shaking with the weight of the task ahead. You've fought battles before, but this is something different. The unknown looms large, and you're no longer sure if your sword or your strength will be enough to protect them. But you push the fear aside, just as you always have. You look to your companions, your friends, and for the first time since you set foot in the mountains, you allow yourself a brief moment of hope. "You're ready," you say softly, as if to reassure yourself. But even as you speak the words, a sudden chill runs through the air. You feel it deep in your bones, a freezing sensation that makes your skin crawl. The shadows in the village grow longer, stretching unnaturally as the sun sinks lower on the horizon. And then, in the distance, you hear it, the unmistakable sound of a roar, distant but unmistakable. It's the sound of something ancient, something powerful, stirring to life. It's coming for you. You turn to the villagers, your voice steady but urgent. "Get ready. It's here." The wind picks up again, a howl in the distance, and the village falls silent. You can hear the pounding of your own heart, the sharp breaths of your companions, the murmur of fear from the crowd. And then, as if in response to the roar, the sky above you grows dark, clouds swirling in unnatural patterns. Whatever you unleashed, it's here now. And there's no turning back.